Hello, everyone. Happy Halloween 2022. Juxtaposition here. Boy, oh boy. Spooksville, USA. Halloween. What can you say? Invisible hand. This is a visible hand. Paul Pelosi. The gift that keeps on giving. Today's video will focus on the Pelosi family cult, a cult within a cult, and where do I start? I could start in 36 different directions, but before I get into the particular details regarding the Pelosi family, which is a marriage between Nancy D'Alesandro and Paul Pelosi Sr., both of whom's parents were in the business, so to speak. The business being the clandestine world of politics, banking, money laundering, and of course, drugs. That's right, I said drugs. These are the ties that bind. If you're ever wondering what could bring together Secretary of State George Shultz and Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger into a room with Phil Harris, an orchestra conductor, partner of Jack Benny, sipping cocktails, the answer is banking, military contracts, drugs, entertainment, which means playing a role, acting, deception, magic. That's what brings them together. The ties that bind. That's what runs our world, not a democracy. My God, does anyone still believe we have a democracy? Give me a break. I'm pretty confident a democracy would never work anyway, so it's not that I'm upset that we don't have a democracy. I'm just upset that we have a bunch of perverts running the show. All right, and the Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi family events are a window for us to look through. It's a porthole that you can look in to see the perversion that is our world and the deceptions and the black magic that's going on. All right, so if you see my previous videos, I've been trying to avoid this whole Pelosi poppycock stories because I really want to talk about Jack Cassidy. I want to talk about Thomas Albert Decker. I want to talk about Inger Stevens, who Thomas Noguchi did the autopsy on her, where she was murdered at age 35, and Jack Cassidy was murdered at age 49, and that Thomas Albert Decker was murdered at age 62, and that Thomas Noguchi did the autopsy. And I want to do stories on that. But instead, I'm sucked back into this Pelosi poppycock because here we go again. You know, 2022 has been a banner year for the Pelosi family. And actually, if you go back a year ago, we had Nancy Pelosi presiding over the cult wedding for Ivy Getty. That's really when it kicks off. Ivy Love Getty, a model and artist, was wed on a 3-day wedding. Have you ever heard of that before? Has anyone ever had a wedding that lasted for 3 days? And it's kicked off with Nancy D'Alesandro Pelosi, who officiated the wedding at the San Francisco City Hall with the decorated, beautiful marble staircase during lockdown, COVID, mandatory masking for all California students, must wear masks. And there we have hundreds of wedding guests for the Gordon Getty family, who's reuniting with a marriage made in Hollywood with Tobias Alexander Engel, who's the lucky groom. And there they are with Nancy Pelosi, and not a soul is wearing a face mask. Nobody's wearing a face mask on November 8th, 2021. So I'm going to kick it off with Nancy D'Alesandro, hypocrite. Mandatory vax? I don't think so. Not in this cult. I don't think any of these people are vaccinated. Absolutely not. Zero. If, we'd know if they were in the hospital or something like that. So the thing is that I think it's hypocrisy of the grandest term. 3-day weddings, okay? The Getty family, don't get me started with that dysfunctional kidnapping, cut off ear, ransom, completely controlled family. They're not really billionaire family. They're fake billionaires, like Bill Gates, fake billionaire. Jeffrey Bezos, Jorgensen, fake billionaire. Larry Ellison, fake billionaire of a CIA software product called Oracle, named by the CIA, built by Ampex Corporation, and then Larry Ellison is the salesman, college dropout salesman, hiding in Lanai, Hawaiian Islands, while COVID blows over. But it's a CIA operation. Oracle is a CIA database. So all these people are controlled. So of course the Pelosi family is controlled. But it all starts really, you have to start somewhere, right? So I'm going to start when Allen Dulles was the director of CIA, and Francis Gary Powers was being recruited into CIA from the United States Air Force to become a spy pilot with the U-2 spy program run by Lockheed Corporation out of Burbank. At that time, the Skunk Works was in Burbank, and they had a Palmdale operation, of course. And what I should tell you is 1957, Paul Pelosi was attending as a sophomore St. Ignatius High School in San Francisco, which is a Jesuit high school adjacent to University of San Francisco and the Lone Mountain College for Women, which are all Jesuit indoctrination centers. St. Ignatius Church, St. Ignatius High School, University of San Francisco, Lone Mountain College for Women. They're all right across the street from Sharon Meadow. Sharon Meadow is named after a banker who donated the land. That is where, in 1967, Timothy Leary, a career CIA operative and sergeant in the United States Army and dropout from West Point, uttered those infamous words, "Tune in, turn on, drop out," in Sharon Meadows, several hundred yards away from where Paul Pelosi was attending St. Ignatius High School 10 years earlier, 1957. And he's got a fancy sports car, which apparently Paul Pelosi's father must have bought for him. Paul Pelosi's father is John Pelosi. We don't know much about him other than he was a wholesaler druggist, which is code for drug dealer, with a state of California license. So that's a way of concealing drug dealing. Who knows if it's legal drug dealing or illegal drug dealing? It doesn't really make any difference. It is drug dealing. It's drug dealing, whether you have a license or not. If you're in the wholesaling of drugs, you are a drug dealer. So Paul Pelosi's father, John Pelosi, was a drug dealer, okay? The tie that binds. So Paul Pelosi was the youngest of 3 sons, the eldest being Ron Pelosi. The second is David John Pelosi, who was age 19 in 1957, and Paul Pelosi Sr., who was age 16. Paul Pelosi Sr., age 16, has a fancy car. He drives 20 miles south, picks up his brother David, and they go on a quote-unquote joyride. It didn't end very joyfully, however. They go to Crystal Springs Reservoir, and they get up onto Skyline Boulevard, where they do a tack run, which means they were speeding. So let me just read to you what was in the San Francisco Chronicle way back in 1957. Youth killed in crash, neck brace blamed. That's called anchored bias. That's called applied linguistic. That's the headline. Youth killed in crash, neck brace blamed. Let me read. A 19-year-old San Francisco youth died in an overturned sports car accident south of here early yesterday. Probably entangled by the brace that he wore to support his neck, which had been fractured from a swimming mishap. I'm not sure how you fracture your neck swimming unless you were diving. But anyway, that's what the story reads. David John Pelosi, age 19, of 3239 Webster Street, right? You could Google that, was the son of John Pelosi, a wholesale druggist. He was trapped under the light car driven by his brother when it flipped over on Skyline Highway, which I know that highway. I've ridden my bike all over it. Approximately 1 mile north of Crystal Springs Dam at 2:40. I'm going to assume that's 2:40 p.m. in the afternoon. The younger brother, not named, is a sophomore at St. Ignatius High School. And at 11 or 12:30 a.m., they had decided to take a joyride. Oh, so it is nighttime. Okay, that means it's dark. Better slow down. According to patrolman Ganley, first responder, David warned the younger brother Paul, now named, as the car neared a tight curve. This is a bad stretch. Better slow down. Paul said he tried to slow down by shifting gears and lost control. The vehicle careened off the road, bounced back, and flipped. All right. That's the story of the Paul Pelosi, age 16, vehicular manslaughter, which, of course, it wasn't written up that way. It was just an accident. So the older brother, David John Pelosi, age 19, he's dead. He died. And they blamed it on the neck brace, assuming he had a neck brace. Who knows what's true, right? But you see how that article is written? It exonerates Paul Pelosi Sr. from any responsibility from the fact that he's speeding at 2:40 a.m. in the morning on Skyline Boulevard, which has no lights. It's very dangerous road. During the daytime, it's dangerous. And he crashes the car, but hey, no harm, no foul. Hey, my older brother's dead. What else do you want to know? Anyway, the reason I bring that up is that that's an important foundational point in the Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi story, because that compromises Paul Pelosi, who's the youngest of the three boys. Because now there's only two sons of the John Pelosi drug dealer. There's only two. And Ron Pelosi, you should not be surprised. He goes on to have a stellar career in corporate America, in the military-industrial complex and financial security business. So he is plugged in. He doesn't get as much media press because Ron Pelosi Sr. did not marry a congresswoman, which Paul Pelosi's wife became. All right. That's where I start the story. Let me just now, before I get into the Nancy D'Alesandro marriage in 1963 to Paul Pelosi, and explain that was like a put-together deal. That looks like an arranged marriage to me. But let's just talk about what's in the news. And what's in the news is this hammer attack. You know, we've been told that a 42-year-old man by the name of David DePapa, trespassed, entered into a high-security home at 2640 Broadway, San Francisco, in Pacific Heights. This is a super high-security home, people. There's over a dozen security cameras in a 360-degree pattern. If you don't believe me, go visit the property. Go visit the property at Normandy Terrace, at the corner of Normandy Terrace and Broadway, San Francisco, Pacific Heights. you will see that every single home in that neighborhood has security cameras, not just the Pelosi house. But the Pelosi house is the only house that has the San Francisco City red painted curbs around their house so that no one can legally park in front of the Pelosi manor. You should also notice that when Nancy's home, the black SUV, the menacing, satanic black SUV, is parked on the red curb. Often, regularly. So the Pelosi family, they have the get out of jail free card sticker on that SUV so that the San Francisco police knows not to ticket that SUV. So the Pelosi family can park in the red, but you can't. It's not a problem. Just park a couple of houses down and walk on over. No problemo. There's plenty of parking in that neighborhood. Just not in front of the Pelosi house, which has security cameras. So the media wants you to believe that this nudist, Castro Nudist, there are so many poppycock messaging signalings involved with these scapegoats. They want you to wonder, is it Fidel Castro, who's a CIA lifetime career agent who's passed away? Or do they mean the gay district of San Francisco, which is a CIA colony? Did they mean the gay district near Polk and Castro Street? Did they near Market Street? Do they mean the Castro, where they have the nude baths? Is that where the nudists are? They'll let you figure it out, right? So they don't want to tell you what to think, but they want to herd you with implied linguistics into thinking that David LaPape, or LaPape, that he is a gay nudist from Castro Street. It's whatever, pick your poison. Or he's a supporter of Fidel Castro, who's a communist, but works for the CIA. It's a CIA communist. Also, they inject that David DePop is a hemp jewelry maker. I have no verification on any of this stuff with David DePop. And that David DePop broke into Paul Pelosi's super high security mansion with the security cameras at 2:27 a.m. in the morning, wearing his underwear. And it's pretty cold. It's like 55-degree temperature. I don't know about you. I have no car. I have no clothes. I have a hammer. And I'm going to break into one of the most secure homes in Pacific Heights where everybody has a security system, including all the next door neighbors of the Pelosi family. They all have security cameras too. But I'm going to do it anyway. And I got my hammer. And I guess they want you to believe that he broke the glass in the backyard. It's exactly in the backyard away from Normandy Terrace. Except all the glass is on the patio. In other words, the glass was broken from inside the house. That's where the great room is. Their living room is inside that the solarium. They have a lot of windows in the back of the house to bring the lighting in, which I can appreciate. But the solarium type design French doors. Couple problems is, if you want to break into the house, you wouldn't break the window that's depicted in the pictures by the media as broken, because you can't reach the door. You can't reach the doorknob, the French doors. You can't reach it from the broken window. You'd break the window on the French door, then you could monkey with the French door lock from inside the house. But that's not what happened. He broke a window that's approximately 5 to 6 feet to the right of the door, meaning that you're not going to get through the house through that little window pane. And why is the glass on the outside of the house? Shouldn't it be, on the marble floor inside the house, or the travertine marble floor that they have inside the house? Shouldn't it be there? I don't know. So, poppycock on all levels. How did he get there? How did he get in the home? Well, okay. What else did they tell you? So Paul Pelosi excuses himself, even though he's got an intruder in his house, goes into the bathroom where he claims his cell phone was charging in the bathroom, downstairs. The bedrooms are upstairs. Downstairs you have, the study, You've got the kitchen. You've got the great room, living room. You might have a bedroom for your help or your security team if they sleep over, but the main bedrooms would be upstairs. So you excuse yourself. You have an intruder just broke your window, magically pulling the glass out onto the sidewalk, onto your patio, and you excuse yourself, go in and call 911, get San Francisco dispatch, tell them that you have a friend of the family over that's waiting for his wife to pick him up, but please come over for a wellness check. The San Francisco police respond to 2640. We only have the district. The police have only allowed the 911 call. They have not allowed the 911 call. Just like in my previous video, when the drunk driving Paul Pelosi crashed into Jesus Lopez on State Highway 29, they have never released the 911 call on that. Never. Not ever. Okay? And the reason that they won't is because the person who made that call is not Paul Pelosi and is not Jesus Lopez, the victim. It's a third party who we don't know who that is. And it's very possible that that person might have been David DePop. Maybe it's him. I thought it was a woman, but it could be that maybe Paul Pelosi he says that this is a family friend. Does that mean gay family friend? I mean, he's a Castro Nudist. That means gay. Castro Nudist means gay. They have gay baths down there. That's what Castro Nudist is, in case you didn't know. That's something I learned in the 1980s, okay? That's or 70s, 80s, but I didn't really become acquainted with that area until I started working in San Francisco. And another thing, why didn't they take Paul Pelosi to PPMC, Pacific Presbyterian Medical Center, which has a new name now, but it's walking distance from his 2640 address on Broadway. You could walk to the hospital from Paul Pelosi's home, but no, they take him to San Francisco General Hospital, which has been renamed Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg General Hospital. What a joke. That's a CIA hospital, people. That's where David Smith, the director of the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, that's where he experimented with mice and rats using LSD and amphetamines at the Zuckerberg General Hospital. That's where they took Paul Pelosi, to a CIA hospital. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, that is a CIA private bank, venture capital created tool, and that is a CIA-controlled hospital. I kind of think that PMC is a controlled hospital too, but I mean, they all are through Medicare. You can control every hospital through Medicare, which is a CIA-controlled social engineering program for doctors and nurses and hospital administrators. But in any case, they took Pelosi to kind of the furthest hospital you could get to from where his residence address is. So that doesn't make sense either. They could have had him at the hospital in, 3 minutes instead of 25, 30 minutes. So a lot of things that the Anne Heche stories are copy and paste with the Pelosi stories, with respect to the Napa car crash, with respect to the hammer attack in Pacific Heights. Poppycock on all levels. And of course, that involves ABC News, Disney Corporation. They love to insert fake news, anchor bias narratives. That is true in this story as well. I'll get to that. All right, so what I was going to tell you. We have a man in his underwear inside of this $25 million home in Pacific Heights. It may not be worth $25 million. It doesn't have a view of Golden Gate Bridge like I would have expected it would have. But it's got to be worth $18 million minimum. Remember the home up in St. Helena, number 2 Zinfandel Lane? That's like a $25 million property because that's like 5 acres on the Napa River off Silverado Trail. That's more desirable. That's private. That's across the street from a winery friend that he can go hang out with. And I know why Paul Pelosi is not spending time up in St. Helena. It's because he's on probation, people. Paul Pelosi was convicted of drunk driving in August of this year, 2022. That means the probation department is required to go visit him so long as he is in Napa County. But as long as he hangs out in San Francisco County, they're not going to drive down here and knock on his door and get recorded on the security cameras. No way. He's in another jurisdiction. And he got that felony DUI reduced to a misdemeanor. So they're going to have him on low supervision. And look, if Paul Pelosi is drinking alcohol, he is in violation of his probation for DUI. He's supposed to be enrolled in a DUI education course, right? He's only been on probation for 2 months. He's only been on probation for 2 months. His probation should be for 3 years. Should be for 3 years. He's 2 months into his probation, and he has a 42-year-old man wearing his underwear inside of his house and wants the police to come over for a wellness check. And the police arrive, knock on the door. Someone opens the door, which could mean that there's a third party. Just like in the Napa DUI car crash, there was a third party that called 911. In this case, I'm told, the media tells us that Paul Pelosi called 911. That means that he was by himself alone in the bathroom making the call to 911 and telling him to come over for a wellness check because he had a family friend that was waiting for his wife to pick him up. Except this guy's not married. So what do you mean waiting for your wife? And we'll get to that in a second. So the police, San Francisco police arrive on Broadway, knock on the door. Somebody opens the door. They observe David DePape and Paul Pelosi both holding a hammer. And they order them to let go of the hammer. And Paul Pelosi lets go. And of course, the David DePape does not. And then he hits Paul Pelosi over the head with the hammer, assaulting him. Whilst the policemen remain standing on the porch. They don't enter. They don't enter the residence. But once they see one man hit the other man with the hammer, they enter and tackle the assailant, handcuffing and arresting him in his underwear, and take him to the jail. Interesting. Where they're going to charge him with, amongst battery charges, they're going to charge him with elder abuse. Now that's kind of code for you must know the victim, right? Because you cannot be charged with elder abuse unless you're in a position of trust and you're a member of the family. In other words, that you are either employed as a caregiver or a butler or a chauffeur, or you're some member of the Pelosi family in order to be construed with elder abuse, which I now believe that David DePape is a member of the Pelosi household. He's either employed as a gopher, I don't know, but he had no car. And look, if you haven't hiked up to this property, people, Pacific Heights and Pacific Avenue, which is actually the block above, it's really steep to get up there, on Scott or Divisadero or Baker or Fillmore. These are steep inclines to get up to this place. And normally people from out of the area who live in Berkeley, allegedly, this fellow lives in Berkeley. How the heck did he get over there? Did he take a taxi? Did he take an Uber? I don't know. And how did he get into his underwear? Or maybe he was naked. I don't know. Was Paul Pelosi in his underwear? Hey, Paul, I got a lot of questions for you. Who was in your 911 Carrera Porsche when you collided into Jesus Lopez on Highway 29? Who was in your passenger seat? Because I understand someone was in there. Was it David DePape? Had you guys just come from the Carmelite prayer house of prayer? Or did you come from a private residence on Walnut Lane? What's the address of the property where you got drunk? What's the address? Who owns that property? Who was there? Who are the guests? I want their names. Did they work for the CIA? I'm just curious. All right, so here's the deal. It's impossible to break into the Pelosi house without detection at 2:30 in the morning. It's impossible. He has security cameras all over that. If you don't believe me, walk over to the property and go check it out or Google it. Part of the property is blacked out, so you can't get, Google is part of the invisible hand, right? So they're not going to have, surveillance for their key people. That's how you know there's surveillance going on. When they black out an Air Force base, when they black out a home that's in an enclave, like in Holmby Hills or in Benedict Canyon or in Atherton or on Sand Hill Road or at Stanford University or at SRI, Stanford Research Institute, if you go and Google the apparatus pieces having to do with the clandestine services, they black them out, which is a confirmation that is a high security area. That's what that means. So if you look on Google and you're getting blocked out, it's because that's a CIA security area. So you can go personally and go visit it. You're not going to be able to do it on your computer. Can't be a keyboard commando and do actual research. You got to go check it out. Anyway, we're not going to fit in all this time. I'm just going to cut this thing off because what I want to tell you about the Pelosi family is they're a cutout. They're CIA all the way. The children, the parents, the grandparents before them, they're a legacy of clandestine services. The Nancy D'Alesandro, her father was a congressman before she was. And her father was associated with the mafia and organized crime. That's code for clandestine services. So Nancy Pelosi's parents were controlled by the clandestine services. So, of course, Nancy Pelosi is controlled. So, is she a hypocrite? Absolutely, she's a hypocrite. She's a hypocrite on masking. She's a hypocrite. She's a limousine liberal because she doesn't know any poor people. I mean, the poorest person in the Nancy Pelosi orbit is this David DePop, who I believe she must know him. She must know him. I bet he lives in her house. Well, the house in San Francisco. It's pretty clear, isn't it, people, that Nancy Pelosi has a separate life from Paul Pelosi, that they're not a romantically married couple, right? That's a partnership. And their children have similar situations too. Their children are all Jesuit indoctrinated through Georgetown or Loyola Marymount, and they're married to people that are in the spook business, entertainment business, media business, or own an art gallery. That's code for money laundering. That's another way to get money in and repatriate it to different sources and uses, conceal the sources and uses of money. Pizza parlor, strip club, like where Jack Ruby worked. Remember the Carousel Club? Jack Rubenstein, Jacob Rubenstein, Carlos Marcello, that was for drug dealing, money laundering. Well, an art gallery, like Biden Hunter, he's an artist, right? He sells art for millions of dollars. That's money laundering, okay? Art galleries get a fee for enabling money laundering. It's called a money laundering fee. They would call it a brokerage fee. That's what money private bankers are. Like Abigail Folger was being groomed to be. Like her mother, Ines Mejia, was a pro. She was a pro. That's what Paul Pelosi appears to be. Paul Pelosi Sr. appears to be a money launderer with his financial services companies. His leasing and real estate companies appear to be a money laundering operation to me. That's what I call it. He's as much a money laundering operator as Jack Ruby's sister, Eva, who handled the money laundering aspects of the Carousel Club. The Carousel Club was to Dallas, Texas, what Paul Pelosi's financial services company is to San Francisco. He kind of took off where Ines Mejia left, Abigail Folger's mother. Heck, they lived on the same street. Didn't you know that? Paul Pelosi lives on the same street as Ines Mejia, the same street that Dianne Feinstein lives on. That's a CIA neighborhood, people. CIA, Ines Mejia. CIA, Dianne Feinstein, who came to prominence how? How? Oh, the Dan White, Harvey Milk, George Moscone assassinations, which go on simultaneously to Jim Jones, People's Temple, Jonestown, drink the Flavor Aid. There's Dianne Feinstein right in the center of that. She knew Jim Jones. Jim Jones is a career CIA. That makes Dianne Feinstein career CIA. That makes Nancy Pelosi career CIA. She was right there too. Right there with Paul. Right there with Jim Jones. Right there with Enos Mejia. Right there with Abigail Folger's mother. Right there in San Francisco. San Francisco is Spooksville, USA. Of course, so is the whole San Francisco Bay Area. Berkeley, where this David LaPoppe supposedly lives, with this woman. This woman is injected into the story from a Russian spy. What is her name? Gypsy Tub. Gypsy Tub, who's incarcerated, maybe at Chowchilla, they won't say. And she says that David LaPoppe thinks he's Jesus and he's mentally disturbed. Well, that sounds like the Anne Heche, breakup bender weekend from Ellen DeGeneres. It's right out of that book. Breakup bender means alcohol. Then they inject ecstasy. Then they said that Ellen DeGeneres' former girlfriend, Anne Heche, said that she's God and she has a spaceship and she's going to take everybody up to heaven in her spaceship. Well, we have that with the David LaPoppe character because they brought in this other cutout, Gypsy Tub, who's 50 years old, woman with 3 children from unknown source men, and is not married to David LaPoppe, but he's her lifetime partner, allegedly. And that she says that he thinks he's Jesus and he's mentally disturbed. But he knows Paul Pelosi and probably lives in his house in Pacific Heights, San Francisco. He didn't break in. You can't break into that house. There's surveillance cameras everywhere. You don't need to call 911. They're alerted automatically. Do you see the mendacities here? The media throws out dozens of anchored bias, applied linguistics, fake stories. None of them are true. None of these stories, not one is true. The only thing that's true is Paul Pelosi works for CIA. Nancy Pelosi works for CIA. That's true. They live in a CIA neighborhood. That's true. That's where Enos Mejia lived. That's where Dianne Feinstein lives. That's where other CIA spooks live. That's where Larry Ellison has a home. He's controlled by CIA. Oracle is CIA-created software by Ampex Corporation. All right, so here's the thing, people. Silicon Valley is CIA. Stanford University is CIA. Sand Hill Road, private equity. That's CIA. CIA banking. Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. That's CIA. Berkeley is CIA. Ronald Reagan was CIA controlled. President of the Screen Actors Guild. Spokesman for General Electric. Master of Ceremonies for the Disneyland in Anaheim, Orange County, along with Art Linkletter and Fess Parker. All right, so what I'm going to call on the Paul Pelosi story is he was not attacked by David DePape, but that's how they're going to roll it out. Just like Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, murdered John F. Kennedy. No way. No way. Was not involved, didn't pull the trigger, didn't shoot the president. But hey, you want to dedicate a bunch of books to it, fake books and fake documentaries, and have Oliver Silverstein come out with a film called JFK, where he repositions the kill shot from the 6th floor book depository and relocates it over to the picket fence where it didn't come from either. That's all Oliver Stone's movie did, people, to placate the conspiracy plot people like myself, because it was a secret plot to kill John Kennedy. It was military, bank-funded, bank-sponsored murder of a president who wasn't obeying orders, who came from Navy intelligence. Jack Kennedy was Navy intelligence. He was part of the CIA apparatus, and he was breaking the rules, just like Abigail Folger was, just like Sharon Tate was, just like Lino LaBianca was. People get whacked who are even in these cults. They get whacked. Typically, it's the children that get whacked, but sometimes it's the parents. I mean, John Kennedy was the child of Joe Kennedy, who built Cielo Drive. And Doris Duke, the tobacco heiress, lives 550 feet away. And Art Linklater, who's totally controlled, he lives about 1,000 meters away on Bellar Road at 1100 Bellar Road. Everyone in Benedict Canyon is surveilled and controlled. Everyone in Holmby Hills is surveilled and controlled. Everybody in Atherton is surveilled and controlled. Everyone on Sand Hill Road is surveilled and controlled. Everyone at Stanford University is surveilled and controlled. Everybody at Stanford Research Institute is surveilled and controlled. Everybody at all these companies, FaceCrack, Google, Cisco Systems, Hewlett-Packard, Lockheed, the Pelosi residence in Pacific Heights, it's all surveilled and controlled. So there is no way that a lone nut with no car, wearing his underwear and a hammer, breaking the glass that wouldn't help you unlock the door, but the glass falls out onto the patio instead of inside the house, which is what I would think would have happened. But since the story isn't true, it doesn't matter. All right, thanks for listening. Hit the like and subscribe. There's so much more to the Pelosi family cult. I could go on for 80 hours on it. I prefer not to. I'd rather talk about Jack Cassidy. I'd rather talk about Thomas Albert Decker. And I'd rather talk about Inger Stevens, who was murdered at age 35. Jack Cassidy, married to Shirley Jones, who was murdered at 49. Albert Decker, who was clearly murdered at age 62. Autopsy performed by Thomas Noguchi. Inger Stevens, autopsy done by Thomas Noguchi. I don't know who did Jack Cassidy's autopsy. It could have been Thomas Noguchi. I disagree with all the autopsy findings on those three. That's what I want to do, but these Pelosi families keep annoying me. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.